pianists and teachers. Today we're talking about how to make your scale passage work sound great. So you've got a piece like a sonatina or a sonata or anything else where there's a lot of runny passage work, and you want to make sure that those scale patterns or similar passage work is reliable under pressure and sounds clean and clear. Today I'm going to be using Mozart's Sonata in A minor, K.310, the first movement, as an example of this, and I'm just going to be using the last few measures in the left hand where it has this runny part, starting at measure 129, that passage. So we're going to talk about my 7 ways to make your scale sound great. Go into the description of this video and click the link there to download your free copy of this list. You can print it out and place it on your piano so you don't have to remember my 7 ways. Piano teachers, you are welcome to print this and give it to your students. I have been going over these scale techniques with all of my intermediate and advanced students as we are preparing for our May recitals. So lots of repertoire like Bach inventions, classical era sonatinas, and sonatas have all benefited from these practice techniques, and just having the paper in my students' binder reminds them of all the things I'd like them to do. Technique number 1 is to decide which fingering you will use based on what's in the edition that you're using or any other editions that you're comparing, as well as what works well for you personally. So in this piece in particular, I like the fingering that's in my Henley edition, but it's interesting because the pattern repeats, they don't actually label all of the subsequent repeated fingering. So at the beginning they start on 4. But I think I might forget to use my 3 and 2, so I'm going to just label an extra one there so that I don't forget to not play my thumb earlier. As I go on in 131, they don't label the thumb right there, so I'm going to add a finger number 1 there so I can be very consistent with that and not accidentally do something different. I think the reason I'm tempted to mess up the fingering at the end of 130 is because it's different in 132. So that's just an example of helping myself out. I've decided what I want to use, but I write in the extra ones so that I don't accidentally become inconsistent and jumble them up. Technique number 2 is to rehearse for consistency. I'm sure, teachers, you've got students who are terribly inconsistent with their fingering. They just kind of throw down whatever finger is easily accessible and convenient in the moment, and that's what we want to avoid. So the best practice technique I know for this is just to say or sing the finger numbers out loud. So 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I would not do this with long passages. In this case, with 16 notes in a measure, I would probably only do 1 or 2 measures and repeat it a few times. But again, writing down that fingering, saying it out loud, or doing something else where you play a little repetition game of, say, 3 times in a row with the correct fingering on a small passage will build that consistency. The next step is actually one that you might not have thought of, and that is to check for arm alignment behind the hand. Particularly for passages like this that span a couple of octaves, it's very important that you're working towards this kind of alignment. And I actually was teaching this particular piece to a student this semester, and he mentioned that going through this was very helpful on this piece in particular, that sometimes he felt like he was reaching across and then his finger technique just wasn't as clean and clear as it could be. So to begin this, right here at middle C, I need to have my forearm behind my hand and therefore in front of my rib cage. I'm even doing a little bit of swing as I come over to my thumbs in those da-da-da, those little patterns ascending. So as you go through, checking and making sure that this is aligned behind. And as you get way down there, you might need to even take your torso over that direction a little bit. Now let's try varied articulation practice. You can do this 100% staccato with a good bounce. We don't want to build up a lot of tension in students' hands, so the point of this is to aim for tall, energized fingers that just have a lot of that energy in them. You would not play this staccato, but sometimes students, when they're playing legato, lose some of that energy. So it's important to feel how it feels if you put that much bounce and even just a little bit of like forearm motion into it on every single finger. Similarly, you can do all marcato or accented. Again, I'm feeling that through my whole forearm so that there's energy and weight on every finger and it's not getting, smudged and lazy in the fingertips. Next, we have varied rhythm practice. This is probably one that most of you know. You can do a swing rhythm or dotted rhythm. And you can reverse that short long, which is much harder for students. For some reason, the long short is much more easily accessible than the short long, so have students work on that. Similar to that, we can do varied accent practice. So this piece is subdivided into four 16th notes. If you're working on a piece with triplets, you would do this with 1, 2, 3, but I'm obviously going to do it with 1, 2, 3, 4. For each group of 4 16th notes, I'm going to accent the first note this time. So 1, 1. Now that's actually quite easy. The first one feels comfortable. Much harder is to accent the second note of each group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. I even messed one of those up because I was thinking about my fingering. Now I'm going to accent the third one. And then the fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. I messed up my fingering, so I'm going to start that again. 2 and 4 are the most difficult and therefore are going to be the most helpful for your students. As a side note, hearing that 4th 16th note in the groups can really prevent rushing on the part of your students. Students oftentimes just kind of don't listen or think about the last note of a grouping and kind of almost skip over it. They might play it, but it might just be ever so slightly shortened, which then propels them into rushing their tempo. So doing that practice not only helps technically, but also helps them hear each one and prevent rushing. Lastly, we have practicing in sprints. Again, for a piece that's subdivided into 4s, I would do 4 plus 1. If you were working on a piece with triplets like the Schubert E-flat impromptu, you'd be working in 3 plus 1 or 6 plus 1. But for this one, we're doing 4 plus 1. You play the first 4 notes plus the next one, and then you're going to repeat that one to play 4 notes plus the next one. So you're always repeating that last note you ended on. This is tempting for students to change their fingering on. They just use a fingering that feels comfortable. So as they do this, they need to be reminded to use the same fingering they were using when they were playing normal 16th notes. Once 4 plus 1 is comfortable, then you can expand those sprints to 8 plus 1 or eventually 16 plus 1, just doubling the groups. Here's 8 plus 1. What that's doing is actually making you play at a pace faster than what you would really do in performance, but only in tiny little groups. So you're not building up a lot of tension. You have a moment to breathe in between each little sprint. It challenges your fingers to move faster, but in a way that they can handle because it's such a small amount. Don't forget to go download the 7 ways to make scales sound great. Free download. It's 1 page. You can pop it into your student's binder or keep it on your piano to help you practice scale passage work in your repertoire. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and share it with a friend. Thanks so much. Best wishes in your teaching and playing.